Today I'm going to talk to you about how to work with the presence. So in the last discourse, number 11, I spoke about the illusion of matter. Now, once you start to investigate the phenomenon of matter, what you'll find is that beneath matter is a different reality. It's like an awareness there, and in that awareness you can sometimes notice some kind of intelligence or presence. Now it's this presence that we want to work with in our lives so that we can continue to get the assistance that we need in order to continue to evolve on our journey. Now that presence may show itself as a guardian angel, maybe a star being, could be some other kind of intelligence. However it looks like, this presence is something to want to work with. Now, it's important to say you want to have a direct experience of this presence. So not talking about blind faith, we're talking about an actual experience that we can have with our being. And when we can have that experience with this intelligence, we can become more intimate with it, not intimate in the way that we see intimacy on earth, but intimacy in a kind of spiritual manner, so you can have a very deep, spiritual, intimate experience with this presence, and in that intimacy you can get into communication with the presence, and this presence can help you and guide you in your life whenever you're looking for what the next step is with your life journey. You can kind of go within, you can do some meditation, you can do some dream work, you can open up and set the intention to be in dialogue with the presence, and that presence will give you inspired actions, give you instructions, and it will give you insight about how to manage your energy and how to live in this dimension. Now, the presence will show itself in different ways. Now, some people see it as a star being, some people see it as an alien, some people may even experience that presence as Jesus Christ. It doesn't matter how you experience the presence, because for as long as you're in a body, for as long as you have your mind, the ego, then your presence is naturally going to be seen from that perspective. So your conditionings, your beliefs, and your vibration will determine how you actually see that presence. Now, over a period of time working with that presence, how it appears to you may evolve and change. From the beginning may just be like a faint sense of well-being. If you go deeper in meditation, you do more cleansing, that faint sense of well-being may like become angelic. You may have a visionary experience of an angel. In time that angel may take on the form of a star being. So there's like an evolution with regard to how that presence actually appears. So you might think at first this presence is something outside of yourself because it looks alien or different or non-human, but the truth of the matter is that presence is simply you. It's your higher self, it's your wiser self, it's the true nature of your being that exists beyond time and space. Now, on some level, you need to have the experience of it appearing outside in order to be in communication with it. It's only later that you'll find that this presence is actually nothing other than you. Now, because this presence is always there, it's beyond time and space, it exists beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the ego, it's infinitely wise. And if you can work to allow, open up and trust this presence, then you can get a massive amount of benefit from that relationship. Now, so important to forge a relationship with that presence within. You don't want to go to light workers or channelers and the like and to get a message from that presence, because the presence for each person will give different instructions. What the presence suggest to one person may not be actually correct for you. So you don't want to follow what another person's presence is saying. So if my presence says one thing, I do that. It doesn't necessarily mean by sharing my experience you then do exactly likewise. It's very important to find your own presence, your own connection, and to go deeper from there. So there's several blockages that one can have in one's life that will prevent you from accessing that higher presence, that higher wisdom, your guardian angel, your star being, whatever. One of the main things is fear in the heart, fear of receiving love from the higher planes. If you can allow love from the higher planes to come into your being, then this presence can actually communicate with you. These presences are extremely benevolent and loving. These presences have a lot of care and respect for you. They won't kind of interfere in your choices. It won't violate your free will. So if they suggest something to you and you don't do it, you have that choice, that's okay. They're not going to force anything. They're not going to try and save you. They're not going to prevent you from having to go through your processes to clear up your karma. They can't take that away from you. So it's important to not view the presence as some kind of saviour, but instead you can view this presence as a very powerful ally, and in the healing of your heart, in the transcendence of your fears and resistances to being loved from the higher planes, and that communication can come through and enable you to have massive healings in your life, and the inspiration that comes from there will kind of propel you forward on the journey. Now, what can happen in the beginning, you can discover these presences, you can have some very powerful experiences with them, and those presences may appear to disappear for some time, so it seems like you're on your own. Now, what's actually happening there is the presence is still there, it's still witnessing, it's still kind of enveloping you in its wisdom. It's just that there's something in yourself that you need to go and clear up back in the physical in order to be able to reforge that connection again. You see these presences, these guardian angels, these upper astral star beings are kind of separated by a vibratory rift, and you can only communicate with the presence if you get close enough to where they are. Now, if you get close enough to where they are, you're going to have an experience with them. You're going to have some mystical experience or divine revelation, and that energy will kind of show you something about your life. And what you'll then find is you do have to go back down again and clear something up. Whilst you're in the back down there clearing something up, that separation is going to be there, and that's why they're no longer present in your life, or they are, but they're no longer visible to you or accessible. And that's simply showing you that there's something to clear up. Once you've cleared that up, you can up your vibration again, and then you can re-establish that communication. Now, the aim of the spiritual path is to become aware of that presence 24/7, whether that presence is an angel, whether it's simply a powerful sense of knowing, whether it's a star being. Doesn't matter how your own presence on a higher plane shows itself to you, that doesn't matter. All that does matter is forging that relationship and trying to maintain that awareness of that presence as much as possible. Now, it's not something you can grasp, it's not something you can force, it's not something you can manipulate or control. If you try and do that, then the presence will disappear, because it will be teaching you something about transcending those things around control and grasping. So when you grasp the lessons that are presented to you in your life and by the presences, when you do have those mystical experiences, then you can dissolve the blockages that cause the separations, and then you can be in a deeper relationship with that presence all of the time. Now, in my life story, I refer to that as a great abiding. What do I mean by that? Well, basically, the presence abides with you all of the time. It's in you all of the time. You're aware of it all of the time, and you live from the wisdom of that presence, that great abiding, which basically means it doesn't ever leave you again. Sooner or later, you'll come to a point where, after the presence has kind of come and gone for several months or years, you'll come to a point where that presence is with you all of the time. So it pretty much tells you that your earthly journey as such is coming to an end, or at least your earthly journey of becoming aware of the presence fully. You may stay around in a body for some time, but the chances are it's going to be in a very 5D manner. You're going to be living from source, you're going to be living outside the matrix, so to speak, and you're just going to be living from your relationship with source, with this presence. Now, another blockage that can come up on the path with regard to having a relationship with the presence is a matter of respect. It's very important to respect the presence because it's a manifestation of source energy. If you don't respect it, it goes away. One sure way to disrespect the presence is to talk about it in inappropriate settings. This is why I don't go on Facebook every day now and say the star being said this, the star being said that, because it's very private and intimate relationship. You wouldn't share the details of a sexual relationship that you have with your partner over the internet or strangers, and this works in the same way for your relationship with these beings. So it's very important to be discerning about how you handle that relationship, and don't disrespect it by leaking that wisdom away or by talking about it in amongst coarse circles. So there's this concept of not casting pearls before swine. So there's a passage in the Christian Bible. It does have some use in its life. Whether you're Christian or not, there's still some wisdom there. And basically, casting pearls before swines means giving away valuable insights of wisdom to those that don't respect it. That's a lesson I've learned in my life with these star beings. And when I did cast that wisdom away without discernment, I lost the connection of the star beings for a significant amount of time until I was able to remedy that. So it's very important to have a strong respect for your presence. It's your presence, it's not someone else's presence, it's yours and yours only, and what the presence gives you is for you. Now, another trap you can fall into on this path when you start to have communications with angels and star beings and whatever, you can fall into the trap of thinking that everything that comes to it is an amazing gift of wisdom, thus it has to be shared, it has to be passed on. Now, it's not necessarily the case, and the chances are that wisdom is for you and it's for you only. Once you respect that, you're going to reinforce that connection further and have a deeper, intimate relationship with your presence. Naturally, the other thing that will get in the way is ethics, to be able to tune in with these presences and to receive the beneficial wisdom and insight that these presences or presence actually bring you. It's important to be ethical because being ethical keeps your vibration high, it keeps you grounded in a strong manner, and it makes you immune to kind of unethical energies in the outside that will then disrupt your energy field and deplete your vibration and cause another one of those vibratory gaps. Now, you can also make it easier to access your presence by being very pure in your diet. So this is why I do a lot of detoxification. I have plenty of raw foods, as much raw food as possible. I'm always drinking the purest water, I'm sun gazing where I can, spending a lot of time in nature, swimming in rivers, meditating in the forest. All of this kind of builds up your power, your strength, your vibration. Again, this will help you access your presence. You can also find power spots in nature. This is elaborated upon in my life story, but basically the power spots are certain places in nature that are supercharged with energy. And we're not just talking about the big ones like Sedona, Glastonbury, Pyramids of Egypt. They're the major planetary ones, but you don't actually need to go to one of those as such unless you feel specifically called, because in nature's many of these other spots are smaller ones, but spots which will plug you into the same energy. Nevertheless, you don't have to go to a massive energy site to tune into this power. So if you go into nature and you can observe carefully as you're being mindful in nature, you'll notice that some parts of nature are like greener than others. They seem a bit more exuberant. For example, you might be looking at a river and some of the plants may appear like dullish and faded, and you might see in some areas as a particularly luminous area, kind of have an eminence of its own. Now when you see that, it's a sign there's an energy spot there, and if you go there and meditate or be mindful, do whatever spiritual practices you do, if you do those in that energy spot, then you're going to plug into that energy in a big way, and the chances are you're going to get a very quick download from source, or you can very quickly get into communication with your star beings. So there's a few places up in the river just beyond my place here. There's a few swimming spots and some other places further up the ravines that have this very strong power, and I go there, and when I go there I kind of enter into a sanctuary, so to speak. I don't tell other people where these power spots are, so they're kind of sacred. The energy of them is preserved, and I can go into them and I can access that higher dimensional wisdom a lot easier, simply because the earth is giving me a massive energetic boost. And if there is any vibratory gap there, then that boost is going to close that up, and bang, I'll be in that space of communicating with the presence very strongly. So I'd encourage you all to go out and look for some power spots in nature, because these power spots will help you, and that's going to be a way that you kind of tune into the presence in a deeper way. So there's various levels of kind of like experiencing the presence. In the beginning it's just a mild sense of well-being. You can get to a point where 24/7 you're fully aware of the presence in a much stronger way, and that's kind of very 5D, because may not be very star being like. If you want the star being presence, if you want the intergalactic wisdom, you have to push it up a few notches more. So once you have the strong presence anyway, if you then go into the power spot, it's going to notch you up a few levels more, and then you're going to find that you have that very strong astral experience or mystical experience that will give you a very powerful experience of the other planes. So you can also use some of the shamanic medicines, the psychedelics, to help you forge this connection. You want to do that discerningly, because the psychedelic path is a challenging path. It can bring up lots of fears. There are pitfalls in that path, which I'll talk about in the next discourse, but suffice to say for now, there are some medicines like the psilocybin mushroom, the ayahuasca, and the San Pedro cactus that can temporarily give you an energy boost. They're called power plants. They're called power plants because they have the capacity to give you that massive temporary boost. So they're kind of lending you awareness, so to speak. They're lending you their power. And when that happens, your energy field temporarily expands to a much bigger level, and then you naturally experience all these other astral worlds with ease. Naturally make sure these substances are legal. I don't advocate you do anything illegal, but if it's legal to use some of these substances in your country, and they can be a very powerful adjunct to the spiritual path, as long as you respect them, don't abuse them, don't overdo it, or don't go into there without an intention. If you have a very strong, pure intention with regard to the use of psychedelics, and it can actually enhance your awareness and take you closer to the presence. If you don't have a strong respect for the medicine, you don't have a strong intention, and then you take these substances, these medicines, what will happen is your awareness will kind of drift. You won't have any direction in your journey, and what will then happen is you'll actually lose energy, which is what you don't want to do. So there's a few ways as to how to get in touch with your presence. So what are the rewards of getting in touch with this presence, getting into a deeper relationship with it? Well, basically, you can surrender to the wisdom of the presence, and that presence can become you. You can become an instrument of source, so to speak, and what happens then is your ego and the presence, which is usually perceived as something other, the ego and the presence become one. You become unified with it. You know, after you've done a lot of work with your mind, once you've cleared a lot of your karma, your ego will kind of take its proper place. It won't have so much control in your life anymore. It'll be happy to take a side position, so to speak. And when it does that, then the greater wisdom, the greater presence can become manifest in your life. Once you become an instrument of source, then manifestation will become a lot easier. You're going to have much more in terms of inspired action, and you're also going to be able to receive a greater sustenance from this presence, from this source. Now, does require quite a big degree of trust. You know, if you don't trust, if you have doubt or fear, then that's going to get in the way of the energies of source, of the presence. So it's important not to have fear, not to have self-doubt, and by entering into a deeper relationship with, a deeper communication with the presence, you can find out what those obstacles are. You can dissolve the resistances. So for example, if you have the question about you want to have greater sustenance, you want to do less work and focus more on the spiritual path, chances are everyone watching this has that very similar aim, then take that to the presence, you know, be in communication there, offer up to the presence what your wishes and requests are, and listen, be open, be willing to receiving inspired actions, because you will get instructions of some kind with regard how to be in the world. And again, the instructions that I get may be different to the instructions you get, so it's important to make sure you're being in your own truth, and my journey is probably different than yours, and thus the instructions are going to be somewhat different. Thus, you can read my life story as a perspective, as a journey, but don't necessarily do exactly the same. You know, still do the work yourself, still find your own sources of wisdom and see what they're telling you. If they're telling you something different, and that's okay because you're on a different path. Now, once you've opened up to your presence in a very deep way and you have a very strong relationship with it, and it doesn't leave you, then you're going to be guided naturally. Your life will become a flow. You know, the energies of the source will just flow through you naturally and carry you along. So again, if you have fear and resistance, you might fight that flow, and it's fighting and resisting that flow is going to stop you getting a higher sustenance. It's very important when you enter into that flow of source just to go with it, to be with it, to go where it takes you, because once there's a total openness and surrender there, you will be guided in the right places, into the right places. If your intentions are pure, your heart is pure, you have a strong ethical grounding, you don't have any agendas about control or anything like that, then the process is going to be very healing. You're naturally going to be taken where you want to go. Why is this? Well, basically the higher self already knows whatever you call this presence, whether it's an angel, source, a star being, pure awareness, whatever else. It knows because it's infinitely intelligent. It's always been infinitely intelligent because it's never ever experienced separation. It's never experienced being cut off from its true nature. Its true nature is always there, it's fixed, it's forever present, it's permanent, and thus it's ultimately the only true reality there is, and because of that it's more wise, it's more intelligent, and it's more correct than the reality is manufactured by the ego. Once you realize this, then you know this higher self, this presence, this source awareness. You'll know it's infinitely intelligent. You'll be able to trust that, and you'll be able to be guided in the right places. I mean, this presence has been around since time immemorial. Before this universe was even created, that presence was there. The presence knows the divine plan. The presence is the divine plan. So if the presence is the divine plan and you surrender to the divine plan, you can't get anything other than the divine plan. It's totally impossible. So ultimately, in the end, it's very easy. It's just about surrendering to the presence and being in the divine plan. Again, it's the mind that gets in the way. It's the lower mind, what we call the ego, that kind of interferes with that. Every time fear or some kind of self-doubt creeps in, and we kind of fall out of that sacred space, so to speak, and then get caught up in the manufactured stories of the ego again. And of course, when you're back in the ego, it doesn't make sense anymore because you don't have the presence whilst you're stuck in the ego space. Thus, there's a separation there. As soon as you get separation, you get confusion. As soon as you get confusion, you get all kinds of other energetic disruptions. And then again, you start making karma again. So you can save yourself making a lot of karma by staying in this sacred space and staying in the sanctuary of the presence. And to do that, you're going to have to do a lot of work in your physical life so that you have the conditions to do that. That's why I've spoken so many times about making these strong conditions for spiritual practice, because it's an insane 3D world out there. No matter how evolved an understanding you may have, that world is still insane when you look at it. It's not a judgment, it's just like an observation. That's how it is, that's how 3D is, because many beings in the 3D aren't interested in having a sacred relationship with Source. Because of that, the more you enter into this sacred relationship with Source, with your presence, the more incompatible the 3D energies become. There's a massive widening there, and a huge rift in vibration, and thus the more that rift separates, the more important it is to maintain that space of sanctuary, because that 3D world can become very harmful to you if you don't have your guard in place, if you don't have a strong energy field. Once you've opened up to like star beings and angels, this is a totally and utterly different reality in what other people know as 3D. Thus it's very important to protect that, to nurture it. It's something very special. It's not something to have degraded, and it's certainly not a space where you want intrusive energies of the 3D to come in and interfere with that. So the presence will actually help you with that, help you with your job transitions, with your karmic clearing, if you need to dissolve past relationships, if you need to let go of anything that doesn't serve you anymore, all of that, you will get help from the presence, as long as you do the work to keep that channel open all the time. You don't want to kind of drop down into lower vibrations because of lack of mindfulness. So you want to hold your mindfulness, you want to be aware every single day of what you're thinking, what you're doing, how you're acting, and making sure that your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings, your actions are congruent with this higher space of being in sanctuary with Source. And if you notice something is not aligned, if you notice there's something pulling you the other way, then you can look at what that is and naturally resolve it. Once all of your being is moving in the direction where you want to go, then it's going to be much easier to stay in that space and hold that energy. So ultimately, you don't want to be doing anything in your life that takes you out of the present. You don't want to do anything that harms your vibration, harms your energy field, or opens you up to kind of energies in the outside that are incompatible with where you're going. So it's very important to be in your own truth. You need to let go of the need to be conforming to anything in the outside, because what you see in the outside 3D, you'll notice it's a totally and utterly different reality. It's incompatible, it's a matrix, it's about death, it's about suffering. You've chosen not to have that. So you need to take the steps to make sure that you stay in that higher vibrational sphere and not to let those lower energies come in and draw from your energy. The stronger the relationship that you have with Source, the more energy you have, and the more your energy field will glow, rather than being like a dim kind of sun. It'll be a massive blazing sun. There'll be so much light and energy there. You do kind of have to go into some kind of sanctuary with that, otherwise you will attract all kinds of vampirish energies from the outside. So daily practice of mindfulness and meditation will definitely help you with that practice of staying connected with the presence. So the final thing about this presence is another advanced practice that we can do if we choose to, and that's the practice of being brahmacharya. So brahmacharya means you basically retain your sexual energy, so you don't engage in any kind of sexual intercourse, you don't masturbate, you don't have orgasms, you don't engage in any kind of mental sexual fantasy or anything like that. Now, it's a choice for each person. It's not like an obligation. It's a personal choice for each person. But for me, I found it a very powerful practice. It works for me and it enhances my connection to Source like times 10, sometimes even times 100. And the reason why that is a sexual energy. It's very powerful energy. It has the energy to create life, so to speak. Now, if you use the sexual energy to create other lives, that's all well and good if that's what you're happy with doing. But if you do that, then what happens is the life that you've created gets a lot of your energy. So basically you create a new life at the expense of your own. It's impossible to create a new life and maintain a very strong energy in your own life force. If you create lives in the outer world through the process of sexual intercourse, then the beings, so these babies will grow up and evolve, and those beings will basically become dependent on your energy field for like 18, 20, 25 years. So it's something to consider strongly before creating life. And if you look at the energy field from the astral perspective of a parent and a child, the child's energy field will be growing, the glow of awareness will be growing, and the glow of awareness in the parent will be dimming. So basically the life of the parent is sacrificed for the energy of the new life. Now, if you want higher spiritual understanding, if you want to strive toward immortality, being offered the Karmic Wheel, then you'll find that creating new lives isn't such a compatible option with regard to where you want to go. And once you get to this stage, it's far more fortuitous to channel the sexual energy upward instead. If you're not going to create a new life, then it's better to channel that energy upward into the higher chakras. If you can hold your energy, if you can hold your sexual energy for like a year or more, this is more relevant to the guys. After a year, all of that sexual energy is down there that might lead you to, that might have led you in the past to like masturbate or look for sexual relationships and to get caught up in sexual desire and lust, romantic attachments and the rest of it. All that energy after a year or so will move right up here. And instead of your energy being down here focused on sex, your energy will be like up here focused on the higher worlds. And that in itself, bringing the sexual energy up, makes a massive connection to source. It will open you up to all kinds of upper astral energies that are very beneficial and strong. So brahmacharya will make you strong, it'll make you grounded in your spiritual practice, it'll give you far more energy, far more insight, far more awareness. Because when you leak the sexual energy away through sex or masturbation, it's usually a depletion of energy. It'll take you a few days to get your energy back again. Where did that energy go? Well, it basically got lost in the culmination of sexual intercourse and orgasm. And sex is right to a point if you want to forge a loving relationship with someone, but once you're more spiritually evolved, it's possible, if you choose to have a relationship, it's possible to have a relationship without the sex, and it's far more spiritually intimate, far more conducive to the path, and the chances are that relationship is going to work for you rather than working against you. Once you have sexual relationships, you get into the push-pull energies of other people's karmas. You have sex with someone else, you plug into a root chakra, whatever karma they've got there, you're going to import it, and it can take you a lot of time to actually get rid of that again. That's something you don't really want to have on this path. So the benefits of bringing up the sexual energy into higher chakras is going to open you up to higher planes, it's going to strengthen your relationship with the presence, it's going to give you immunity to kind of degrading karma in the outer world, it's going to make you respect yourself more, it's going to make you see the truth more. The amount of serious spiritual wisdom you can accumulate will be enhanced after a long period of brahmacharya. And ultimately it's going to heal your body of all kinds of maladies. You're going to get very strong in your health. Your dreaming will be much stronger. As soon as you go to sleep, if you've been brahmacharya for a year, bang, you'll be up there in the upper planes exploring the astral, having all kinds of lucid dreams with ease. If you have a lot of sex, if you masturbate, then what happens when you then go to sleep? Because that depletion energy don't go to the upper planes. When you go to sleep, you kind of go down and then you kind of come up. And sometimes it can take many hours for that coming back up process to occur in the dreams. So you've lost a lot of valuable dreaming time simply because you've either been recovering from the loss of sexual energy or because you've gone into some lower astral reality to continue to play out those lustful scenarios, and that will naturally happen if you masturbate a lot and then you go to sleep. You are going to go into those other worlds and get caught up in those lustful energies, and you don't want that. And the other reason why brahmacharya is so powerful for building this relationship with the presence is because it stills your energy field. If I look at someone that has a lot of sex, not being judging here, I'm just making an observation, I see their energy field constantly going like this. If I go into the supermarket, I can tell very easily who's had a lot of sex because their energies are like buzzing like this all over the place. I can see bits of energy like flying off all over the place, and I'm not really aware that's happening, but I can see that happening. And the practice of brahmacharya makes a very still energy. Your energy is like a very strong rod. It doesn't do this anymore. It doesn't pull left to right. If your energy feels going left to right because of sexual energy, then in that process of it going left to right, it's also going to get snagged up in all kinds of other energies in the outer, and thus you're going to get entangled more in karma. So brahmacharya is a way of like making a very strong conduit upward, very strong one. It doesn't move. So when you go out in the outer world, you're not going like that. You're staying very strong like that. And the energy is very strong like that. It doesn't get caught up in any kind of other energies that aren't compatible. So when you're brahmacharya, you can go out there into the 3D world and do whatever you have to do in the 3D world without getting disturbed. You won't pick up energy disturbances as much, and thus your energy field will stay clean, it will stay pure, it will stay strong, and you'll maintain that presence to source much more. If your sexual energy is all over the place, if you do have an experience with the star beings or with the presence, then what will happen is that energy will come through, it will be mixed up with the movement of sexual energies, and it will end up being leaked all over the place. I can testify this from experience. When I first had the communications with the star beings, I was still engaging in sexual activity, and because my energy field was like that, I couldn't help but leaking all of this star being energy away, going out into humanity, like sharing all this star being experiences is, on one level, it's just like being very orgasmic. So my energy is just like shooting out all over the place. It felt good at the time, but simply something feels good, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you. So if you want to hold this energy of star beings, of like angelic beings, you want to hold the energy of the presence, it is very advantageous to be brahmacharya and to remain in brahmacharya for as long as you possibly can. Of course, you don't want to force anything. If you do really feel you have to have a sexual relationship, or you need to resolve some emotions connected with sexual relationships, then it would be better for you to do that. But if you don't need that, if you don't need to do that, if it's just like a lust that's pulling you in, then it's better to kind of like step back from that and witness that from a place of awareness, and the chances are that lust or temptation or desire will naturally move away again, and you can stay in that strong space of power and strength. Final thing, once you're brahmacharya and you have that very strong energy, you have that very strong energy field, you basically become incompatible with the energies of 3D, and thus if you are going to be brahmacharya, it's absolutely vital to build yourself this vibratory sanctuary where you can just be in your energy field without the outer disturbances. The energies of brahmacharya and the energies of sex are very different. They're both choices that different beings make. So there's two different parts there, but the two don't mix. So once you're brahmacharya, you want to be careful with who you're sharing with. For example, you want to be careful who you're hanging around with. Naturally, once you're brahmacharya, you wouldn't go down the pub and start drinking beer whilst everyone else is like chatting each other up, trying to get pulled kind of thing. Those energies obviously don't mix. So once you have that brahmacharya in place, you do want to be very careful with where you're putting your energies, because if you don't, those incompatible energies will get into your field, cause you lots of disturbances, and sooner or later you end up breaking your brahmacharya, which you don't want. So brahmacharya, the longer you hold it, the more energy you have, the more sexual energy that you can retain and push upwards into higher channels, the more is the potency there. If you then break the brahmacharya, say you've been brahmacharya for a few months and then masturbate, the energy loss will be much, much greater than if you just masturbated every few days. yes, there's a loss when you masturbate every few days, but if you don't do it for like 6 months and then you kind of do it, 6 months of energy is totally lost in one hit, and that leakage can be very harmful. It's like kind of like climbing up a high mountain and falling off and crashing down, finding yourself a lot lower down the mountain, then having to climb your way back up is very disheartening and disencouraging. I've had this kind of like in my early 30s, and having experienced that, it's not something I'd want to experience again, so I pass on the benefit of this wisdom. If you be brahmachari, look after yourself, look after your energy field, make sure your conditions are good, and make sure you don't get caught up in the wrong energies. So ultimately, once you're in this presence, you're basically in spiritual reality. This is spiritual mastery, to be at one with the presence and to live from the presence. That's basically it. Once you live in the presence, everything is taken care of, everything's provided for. Any understanding that you want to have is naturally there. You can just tap into it like that. There isn't kind of anything else to do anymore, but just to be in that presence and to nurture that. Like your relationship with Source, with Presence, with God, however you want to call it, that becomes your only work. Once you get to a certain point on the journey, once you're really serious about your spiritual path and not coming back here again, that is the work, to be in the presence and to hold that presence as much as possible. Anything else is incompatible to that. By realizing that, just by holding your presence in every day and living from that wisdom, everything will sort itself out. And then any separations that you may have experienced in the past, like you here, like spiritual reality there, doesn't exist anymore. The two come together, you become perfectly integrated, you become at one with the great Source, and there's nothing much else really to say about that. When you attain that state of being in your life, it will speak for itself. Anything that needs to be spoken will be there, and you'll basically just get it. There won't be anything to figure out anymore. The journey of searching, the journey of travelling through the astral planes, the journey of figuring things out, plugging away at your karma, going through emotional crap, cleansing your body. You'll come to a day where it just stops, the journey finishes, and you're just there. You can just be. That's freedom, that's peace, that's it, that's the goal, to be in that space, and to be in that space with strong and pure awareness, and to be in that presence for the rest of your earthly life.